You're live.
Yeah. Good evening and welcome to Gunner Shot. Gunner Shot में आप सबका स्वागत है. Today we are going to discuss in this Casa and Gunner Shot webinar all about Bangladesh, which is on the boil, and the implications for India. To discuss this topic, I have with me a very illustrious panel of Ambassador Gurjit Singh, General Gautam Moorthy, General HASNAIN, and General KH Singh, Konsam Himalaya Singh. At the outset, I'd like to welcome all of you for this evening's webinar, sirs. Good evening and welcome. I'd also like to tell at this point of time that we are not only going live on Gunner Shot, but we are also going live on P Gurus, which is a larger channel, and where our views are going to be heard across internationally. Right. With this, sirs, without wasting much time, what I'll do is I'll put all of us through a basic set of information from which we will operate, and then I'll request each of you to give your views. Right. Let me start from the beginning. Here we go. Right. We all know that Sheikh Hasina has resigned and left the country. A caretaker military arrangement is in place. The future is hazy. When you look at the internal factors, 2020, Bangladesh was economically strong and politically stable. Bangladesh, in the time, played out USA, China, and India against each other. There were radical, hardline political trends throughout the time we've known Bangladesh. But there was an economic breakdown post-COVID, and the Ukraine war even worsened the situation. And hence, Bangladesh had to go into an IMF program. Right. Earlier this year, we also saw an India Out program, which was a contagion from Maldives. Then once the elections took place, the legitimacy of the elections post the opposition boycott also came into place. And there were voices whether Bangladesh was turning into a one-party state. Then it followed up last month with a reservation in quota state. I'm not going to go over it. Then the students' unrest. And all of a sudden, almost in a flash, on the past 72 hours, there's political turmoil or a military coup or whatever you call it. Sheikh Hasina is not in Bangladesh anymore, and the situation is hazy. The few interests. What are the Chinese interests? The Chinese seek entry into the Bay of Bengal as part of their two-ocean strategy. 2016, Xi Jinping visited Bangladesh, which was quite a landmark issue. 2002 onwards, there's a defense cooperation agreement between Bangladesh and China. 2016 to 2020, Bangladesh procured 17% of all Chinese defense exports. That's huge. This included submarines, training jets, frigates, rifles, and pistols. Quite a sizable number. In fact, China also built a submarine base in Cox's Bazar, which was inaugurated in April 23. They've also carried out major military exercises as late as May 24. But last month, Sheikh Hasina went to China, and she had to cut her visit short in July and come back because what she felt that China didn't live up to their promises. What is the US interest? Right? US seems to be killing two birds with one stone, both China and India. It has of late been seen, it is seeing India as a reluctant partner to contain China, not India. That's a wrong thing which I written. In May 23 last year, Victoria Newland, their expert, went to Bangladesh. Their coup expert went to Bangladesh, and then in July 23, the U.S. ambassador Peter Haas to Bangladesh advised Bangladesh to speak to the opposition. He in fact advised Sheikh Hasina to speak to the opposition. Then he invoked democracy and human rights and all that. So for the past 1 year, Bangladesh has been in the cross sights of the US. Also around that time, June, July 23, there's news about the St. Martin's Island it came, but USA was requesting that Bangladesh for a base there. And US also has not been happy with the elections in Bangladesh. And there's also been a US shift with India post PM's visit to Russia. And there's also a perception gaining ground that this whole story has been sponsored by US. Now, to put things in perspective, this is St. Martin's Island. It is just about 8 to 10 kilometers north to south, about 2 kilometers wide. But when you zoom out, you understand where this island is. From here, China through Myanmar is just over 1 hour's flight. And of course, India is also in reach. A a base here affects. In fact, if you look at the US footprint, it is only in the North Bay of Bengal that they don't have a base. I'm just putting this out. What are the Indian interests? We need a secure and stable Bangladesh for a stable Northeast and a prosperous India. We want the region to be free of foreign influence. Sheikh Hasina has been seen as India's friend. Historically, BNP and Jamaat have not been aligned with India. Instability in Nepal, Bangladesh, Myanmar will have repercussions, and all these three uh, places today are in some kind of turmoil. Now, we also have to understand India has extended a 8 billion line of credit to Bangladesh, which is currently operational. Major companies have invested in Bangladesh, which include Marico, Imami, Dabur, Asian Paints, and Tata Motors. A lot of our students are studying there, and there are a lot of our people who are at this point of time stuck out there. Right. So we have our interests. I explained to you the Chinese interests and the US interests and Bangladesh as a whole. With this as a background, where do you see things going, and uh, what are the implications for India? First, off the bat, General Gautam Murthy, sir, all yours. Please take it on.
Thank you, General Shankar, and thank you, and good evening, good morning, Jai Hind to all participants and my fellow esteemed panelists. At the outset, General Shankar, you're encapsulating the entire issue as it is, has given us a very clear picture of what has happened, what is going on, but how it is likely to impact India is what you have asked, and let us try and dilate on that. So, first of all, off the bat, I'd say let us not get carried away by the vandalism that we are seeing. It makes for good TV pictures, social media. Everyone is a journalist today, let's face it. Anyone with a phone showing anything. And this agitation has had a momentum of its own. All protesters of all hues wanted Sheikh Hasina out, and they've got what they wanted. So, where do we go from now? Initially, the Bangladesh army is likely to steady the ship. If you've seen the visuals today, life is going on normal, except for some government offices. But otherwise, it is more or less normal, other than a couple of hate crimes that are going on against a few temples. I'll come to that later. The Bangladesh constitution originally provided for an interim government for 3 months, which Sheikh Hasina got that removed, but I think this will come into play now. Mr. Mohammed Yunus is flying back. He is likely to head the new government from what one has seen. No member of any political party is likely to be a part of the government. A new dispensation will take charge. Subsequently, after elections, BNP, of course, Jaitya, perhaps an Awami League and a new avatar. Right now, the Awami League is in the doghouse, but perhaps in a new avatar, once tempers have cooled, you could expect it to come back. Student leaders who were in the forefront of the agitation will have a say. Begum Khalida will, after being released from jail, we all know she's very ill. I don't think she'll be able to participate. She needs to treat herself and probably go abroad for treatment. So, what does India need to do? India needs to build bridges with the new dispensation. This is not going to be easy, considering we were having Sheikh Hasina's back despite her growing unpopularity. Also, this will depend on how much influence the Jamaat-e-Islami has on the next government. Now, that is to be seen. More than Sheikh Hasina's pro-India policies, it was an authoritarianism and dictatorial manner of governance that led to her ousting. We are likely to see in Bangladesh a moving away from the overt celebration of the War of Liberation to a more subdued version of it. This year's Bijoy Diwas celebrations on 16 December, to my mind, will be a pointer to see which way the wind is blowing. So let's keep a tag on that. India will have to, because these are internal contradictions within Bangladesh. The society was polarized soon after the war of liberation, and we know what has happened. We're not going into the history. India will have to accept that there are internal dynamics within Bangladesh that are at play, and India can at best be a frank and transparent partner in our dealings with them, with whichever dispensation comes to power. The worst case scenario, to my mind, is for Bangladesh, and hence for India, is the rise of Jamaat-e-Islami and allied forces that are backed by the ISI. If that be so, and if such fundamentalists capture power, then all bets are off. We could see Bangladesh descend into a kind of anarchy, which would be a nightmare for India. Now, if you look at Arab Spring, they are comparing this as a monsoon revolution, they're calling it. But after the Arab Spring, some countries went into a tailspin, notably Syria, Libya. Some countries had elections like Egypt, but when the Muslim Brotherhood came in, they went back to martial law. So we hope that the majority of Bangladeshis stand up resolutely against such regressive forces and maintain their legacy of separating religion from politics, which has come about recently. We can expect the army to play a major hand. Your second slide, General Shankar, was about Chinese interests. I would like to add it's Chinese and Pakistan interests. How does India counter this? You brought out that the PM had a disastrous visit to China and returned one day ahead. And China was not happy with the way that she was being even handed between China and India. China has been interfering in the affairs of Bangladesh since long. Some student unions have come under the influence of the ideology of CCP. There are colleges in Yunnan that teach in Bangladeshi students are coming in huge numbers. Some of them are being recruited by the Ministry of State Security to work for them. How they will act in future needs to be seen. Hence, China's hand in taking advantage of the huge dissatisfaction against Sheikh Hasina's rule cannot be ruled out. In fact, the Islamic Chhatra Shibir, ICS, a student wing of the hardline Jamaat-e-Islami, has been determined since long to replace Sheikh Hasina with a China and Pakistan-friendly government. So, if this happens, anti-India terror groups are likely to have a much deeper influence. In fact, the ICS is believed to have received funding from Chinese entity operating from Pakistan. So, India needs to rebuild its influence as a helpful friend with Bangladesh, which has been demonstrated a number of times over the years. And it is in Bangladesh's best interest to continue to extend a hand of friendship towards a democratic India. It's also important to see that Bangladesh is a very fertile land. It's a rice bowl that China is actually eyeing. As its groundwater starts depleting and its crop growing regions keep getting smaller, the rain line is moving southwards. So China is looking at an arid future. It needs a land grab. For that, it needs to stretch Indian forces away from its borders. We could expect some kind of domestic disturbances. Your third slide was about US interests. Where does India stand? You've given us a very good background. So I'll not going into it, but basically to say that now that Sheikh Hasina is out, it will be in the interest of the US that Bangladesh gets a stable polity which is not inimical to US interests in the region. Although India and US differed in that India did not castigate Sheikh Hasina for the excesses, India and US interests now converge in seeing a stable Bangladesh that is not under the influence of radical forces. Also, I think US does not wish to see China extend its influence in Bangladesh. In any case, the US would not want fundamentalist forces to assume control over the nation. So the US will do all it can to ensure peace and stability in Bangladesh. Perhaps as conspiracy theories go, visits of David Liu, Victoria Nuland were successful, but I'm not going there. I'm just saying that today our interests converge in seeing a peaceful Bangladesh. Apart from that, Indians' interests primarily right now is border security. It is stepping up, deploying additional troops, reviewing our operational preparedness. Now, this is crucial basically to prevent any illegals crossing over and maintaining stability. Now, this will affect the security situation in North Bengal, especially from Malda northwards, South Dinajpur, and up to the Siliguri corridor. Combined with what is happening in Doklam and Bhutan, could create serious problems for our northeast. There's already a clamor for separation of North Bengal. We've been hearing that for political reasons. China would like to widen the Doklam corridor. One has to be careful. Manipur is very, very vulnerable. It was vulnerable, a lot of it internal, some of it external. So we really do not know. Refugee influx is huge. Prolonged political unrest could lead to an influx of refugees into India, particularly in states like West Bengal and Assam. This could strain local resources and create a humanitarian crisis, which is not likely to be as humongous as it was in 1971. Trade disruptions, we are seeing leading to it. And General Shankar brought out, we've got many companies and factories that are functioning in Bangladesh. We've got to take that into account. The political stability might embolden anti-India militant groups operating there. During Sheikh Hasina's tenure, there was a crackdown on such groups. Now, diplomatic relations, I leave it to Ambassador Gurjit to speak more about it, but suffice to say, we'll need to navigate our diplomatic stance very carefully. We need to support democratic movements while ensuring regional stability and maintain the delicate balance. India must remain vigilant and proactive in addressing all the challenges that are going to come henceforth. That's all that I have to say. Back to you, General Shankar.
Thanks a lot, sir. I think you made a very nice assessment of the whole situation and where India should go. The main points which you have brought out is that India has to rebuild a lot of bridges, and we have to contend with a lot of contradictions which constitute Bangladesh, which are now going to come to the fore because the way you put things across, Bangladesh will not be quite peaceful for a long time to come. Right? Right. And a lot of responsibility devolves on the Bangladesh army to steady the ship. So let us see where it goes. And the next thing which you made a point was that India needs to start converging with the US to stabilize Bangladesh, to keep the Pak and the ISI out, as also the Chinese angle out, which I think is a major thing. And of course, you highlighted the major sensitivity of the Northeast, especially the Doklam area, the Siliguri corridor, in fact, North Bengal, all the states, Tripura, Assam, and also Manipur, about which I'm sure General Singh will talk a little more when we call upon him. Right? Thanks a lot, sir. With this, I'll request, please go ahead, General with your views, and then I'll get to the ambassador. Over to you, General
Good evening, everybody. Thank you very much, General Shankar, sir, for inviting me, and General Gautam Moorthy, sir, for inviting me. And what a great opportunity for me to be speaking on this occasion alongside respected General HASNAIN and Ambassador Gurjit. Thank you very much. I just spoke to two persons in Bangladesh just about 20 minutes back before starting this. There are some friends. One was Meitei from Manipur. Another one was Chin Kuki, Meitei settled in Bangladesh in Sylhet area. And another one was Chin Kuki, who is in the Chittagong hill tracts. And both of them assured me that the minorities are so far safe on the eastern side, though they have heard certain violence against other minorities towards the central and the western side. So I thought I'll begin with this. Whatever has happened in Bangladesh, according to me, is we don't know what is going to pan out. But what we do know is the instability is going to continue for some time. which has got very, very serious security implications, not only for the entire country, but for northeastern region in particular. So I will try and restrict my introduction with you primarily on the northeastern issues. Uh, See, the historically all, barring none, all the insurgent groups, over 20 insurgent groups have traditionally been using Bangladesh as a base, administrative, logistics, and otherwise to launch operations since many, many years. Whether the insurgents in Assam, Ulfa, the NSCN of in the Naga Hills, then the Meitei, PLA, UNLF of Manipur, and whatever Tripura volunteers, Bodos, all of them have had, uh, bases in Bangladesh. It was only during Sheikh Hasina's tenure that some kind of a restraint was imposed, and most of the insurgent groups had actually shifted away from Bangladesh. This was a very, very um, successful time for Indian diplomacy as well as for Indian security establishment to actually reduce their linkages with Bangladesh. But as we see now, what are the future trajectory that is likely to come up given the situation in Manipur, as also in unfinished talks and uh, negotiations with the NSC and IM, given the interest shown by China, much to the much against our country, and also instability in Myanmar. All this combined together, I have a feeling that very soon we are going to find a some kind of a revival in some form of certain militant groups in the region. Particularly if the NSCN IM talks, don't go anywhere, and the issues of even the PLA of Manipur have not shown any kind of inclination for talks so far, in spite of huge degradation in their, capability in the recent years. So these have a very huge concern as far as the internal security insurgency situation in the Northeast is concerned. If you recollect, maximum arms supplies, for Ulfa, NSCNI, most of them were routed through Chittagong, from unnamed Chinese companies via Bangkok and all that. These were history. These did not take place in the last about 7, 8 years. But now, last more than 10 years now you cannot rule out resurgence of such kind of activities with the tacit cooperation from the ISI and so-called Chinese non-state actors. We have the ULFA, which is almost gone very, very extremely weak, not even able to consolidate their own position, even in the very small areas. So there is a potential for revival of such insurgents. I am saying potential because now we don't know how the situation is going to pan out, how China is going to build up their efforts here, and how the military junta's activities in Myanmar also is going to work. All this will also propel these insurgent groups to make their strategy in the times to come. So we have the security agencies, the intelligence agencies. We have a huge responsibility, and also we have to look ahead as to how we can deal with such a possibility in the not so far distant future. That is something that I would like to flag to begin with. The second issue is about the radical elements. As you, General Murthy mentioned about Islamic Chhatra Shivir, they are definitely anti-Hindu. And also with Jamaat, and basically they are a student wing of the Jamaat, they have openly declared what they said in 2008 is Bangla Hobe Afghanistan. Means Bangladesh will turn into Afghanistan is what they said in 2008. And also, Bangla Army Taliban Hobe means basically they are saying that we will be like Taliban and Bangla Hobe Afghanistan. If this is their, I am told that Jamaat and Islamic Chhatra Shibir, they are not extremely popular entities as of today, though they had a significant hand in overthrowing Sheikh Hasina. So we have to see what is their plan. The radical elements are real and active, and the radical elements have the potential, have the capability to intrude into northeastern region because we have over 12 to 13 million Muslims in the northeast, and a small fraction of them, very small fraction of them, have actually been brainwashed in the last, let's say, about 15, 20 years back. So we cannot rule out return of such radical elements. And by 2008, intelligence agencies had recorded 16 MFOs, Muslim fundamentalist organizations. So we have to be extremely watchful. And these MFOs are primarily in Assam and Manipur because all other states, barring Tripura, are basically Christian dominated, tribal dominated. So mostly they will affect Manipur and Assam, who are generally relatively unstable, even now. I mean, Manipur more unstable than Assam. So therefore, this has to be taken extremely seriously, given the linkages between DGFI, ISI, and these MFOs. These MFOs have been, their activities have been recorded, and they are with Indian intelligence agencies. And all the evidences exist to substantiate what I'm saying in the records of Indian intelligence. So, therefore, this is a very real future concern, and I am not talking about these are NRC and other things; those are political in nature. But the fact is, Rohingyas continue to even. I mean, every day I get report at least 7 to 15 people caught, in the railway stations from Agartala to Silchar every day. So we don't know how many have not been caught every day. So therefore, there is a real concern that should Bangladesh become more unstable than what it is already today. I hope not. I pray that Bangladesh remains stable. If it continues to be unstable, then there will be more such demographic invasion, not in the scale of 1971, 72, but definitely, uh, definitely in the offing. In this context, I would like to also mention that even in as far as 1948, I would like to just recall that Sheikh Mujibur Rahman had said that Bangladesh will need Assam in order to support our population. So this may be a far-fetched theory. It need not necessarily translate into any kind of a strategy. But the fact is that if there is a rise of 15 centimeters of sea level, 15 centimeters, I am told that the displacement from Bangladesh is going to be over 16 million people.
50%,
These are the
50% pop.
50%. Okay.
Country.
So
Yeah.
thank you, sir. So if such kind of a thing, though these are very, very far-fetched, not connected to this current crisis, but the fragile socio-economic and also demographic dispensation in the Northeast is bound to be affected, which can have a very serious internal security aided by external agencies. So, so these two issues I thought I will also mention. The last but not the least is the demographic, demographic change in certain areas. In Nagaland, most unexpected. All of you must have heard Sema Mia, Sema Mia. Those Sema tribes, married to Bangladeshi refugees who had come from Bangladesh. So today there is a little tussle between the Angamis, the most powerful tribes, and the Sema Mias in Dimapur. Control. So what I'm trying to say is, in the already volatile situation, and the situation developing in Bangladesh is going to ignite more fractious kind of ideologies, ignite more fractious kind of narratives, which will impact impact significantly to the India's northeastern internal security, as well as even external. Thank you very much. Thank you for your giving me time. Thank you very much.
Oh, thanks a lot, General KH. I think you brought out some very, very valid points, and you focused on the Northeast. And I share your concern and your views. Just to highlight, yeah, revival of NSCN, IM, and the groups in Manipur with bases in Bangladesh is a nightmare scenario for us. Those of us who have served there will understand this. And now that is potentially likely to revive. If that revives, things are going to be hell. The only thing I'd like to add to whatever you said is the issue of drugs, because Myanmar has seen a huge revival of drugs, and the drug economy, if it starts flowing from Bangladesh across the Barak Valley, Manipur, and into Myanmar, we are in a major, major problem. I think you brought it out very well. Then the issue of radicalism, you said you don't need everyone to be radical. You need 1 to 5% to be radical, and be part of a MFO. And then there are a lot of issues which will come up. And then, of course, with the earlier Bangals who were there in Manipur, at the Semamiyas in Nagaland, this demographic inversion has its own dynamics, right? And the fragility, the demographic fragility of Manipur and Assam, especially South Assam, right, where you have Muslim majority districts like Hailakandi and all those, Kachar, things like that. So you're going to have issues, and we have to be ready. And also other Muslim majority districts like Nagaon and more. Okay. So this is a whole thing. The issue which you highlighted, very important. The fragile socio-economic and demographic balance of that area is at stake today. How we navigate this, we have to come out with new strategies. The old playbook is over. Right. With this, I'd like to invite Ambassador Gurjit Singh. Sir, your views, all yours.
Thank you so much, General Shankar. I've heard the eminent panelists very carefully, and they have spoken so eloquently and with great detail. Let me see if I can add to that with some broad brushstrokes. This is about the 30th military intervention in Bangladesh. It is becoming a habit. What has happened in Bangladesh yesterday happened in Kabul, happened in Colombo, and the people raided the palaces and as if there was no order. So this anarchy which is prevailing in Bangladesh needs to be controlled. In the case of Afghanistan, the Taliban controlled it. In the case of Sri Lanka, Ranil Wickremesinghe controlled it. But who is going to control it in Bangladesh? This is the biggest uncertainty. Second, the fact that we got over the Bangladesh election was a plus for us, because any election in our neighborhood means the rise of anti-India sentiment, because that elicits votes. Now, if they are going, I think they have dissolved the parliament. So if there's going to be a new election, and the new election will have no Awami League or a diminished Awami League, which means the anti-India elements will have a freer stake, is not good for us. I am a supporter of democracy, and India would like Bangladesh to be democratic and developed. But we cannot have a Muizu situation coming up again that is detrimental to us. Who are the main players now? There is the president who is trying to put together a seemingly reluctant interim government of technocrats, like Pakistan tried at one stage. There is the army, who seems to be thrust into this role rather than wanting it. There is the Awami League. They are under tremendous attack. So we don't know what will be left of them in the next few months, and when will they be able to bounce back. Then there are these Jamaat and the Begum Khaleda's party, and she has been released from prison. The chairman of her party, who lives abroad, Rahman, is coming back. That is danger to India. They are the students who actually led the anti-reservation movement. They are not a danger to India. If we can separate them from the rest of the protesters who are anti-Awami League and anti-India. Not only have they toppled the statue of Bangabandhu, they have attacked the Indian cultural center. So I think this is the domestic scenario. What can India do except wait? Now we must remember that Sheikh Hasina is in India, and her future plans are unclear. There are reports that the Americans have cancelled her visa. If the Americans are not playing ball with her, I think it is unlikely that the British will play ball. So where is she going to go? I will not be surprised if she leads a quiet existence in India for a while till her future is decided. But having her in India will continue to jar the anti-Indian elements who will stoke this in Bangladesh. And therefore, I'm sorry to say this, we should like to have the interim government continue till such time as the Awami League can stand on its own feet again before a new election is held. We cannot have the risk, like Sri Lanka is running now, of a new election and we don't know who will come to power. Second point about regional politics. See, Pakistan and China are always committed to upstage India, and they will align with inimical forces. In this case, Hasina was not inimical to China, but she kept a balance. And finally, I think the tipping point was that she would not give the Teesta project to China. But the Americans, like in Afghanistan, have ditched India. They are not sharing our regional perspective. So therefore, we are on our own. Now, of course, with Hasina gone, can India and the US see eye to eye is an open question. But for that, the US needs to first get its own house in order. Therefore, India has to show Atmanirbharta on its Bangladesh policy for now. In this, we also must remember that the largest creditor to Bangladesh is Japan, followed by China and Russia, who are far behind. And then comes India. So, India and Japan have been trilaterally approaching Bangladesh to build infrastructure. This is a carrot which we must continue to hold for the economic benefit of Bangladesh. We must remember that the investments we made in Bangladesh are for Bangladesh, not for the Awami League. and we must retain that distinction. Finally, I come to the Northeast. You know, in the past, India developed projects with Myanmar, the Kaladan multimodal project, the trilateral highway, essentially to bypass Bangladesh and build connectivity with the Northeast. This is because during the Ziaur Rahman and Khaleda Zia time, the relationship with Bangladesh was not steady. So we tried to outflank them. When Myanmar went under in 2021, we went back to Bangladesh and started connectivity through Bangladesh to the northeast. Now, with Myanmar and Bangladesh both in internal jeopardy, India's regional connectivity projects are up in the air. We need to show immense patience. The Muizu example shows that you may like to join China whenever you like, but the realities of geopolitics and geoeconomics don't go away so easily. So patience is advised. We must make sure that our links to the army, to the president, to the students, to the interim government are maintained. And through them, we should ensure that no anti-Indian movement is allowed to succeed. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, sir. I think you made some very, very, very interesting points. The things which I'd like to recount: 30th military intervention. There's a leadership vacuum in Bangladesh, which could lead to anarchy, right? And then we are on our own. We are Atmanirbhar geopolitically in this issue. And can we find a convergence with US on this issue, since till now we've been divergent? Okay. Then, of course, you highlighted the requirement of an interim government continuing till some form of governance properly comes in and proper elections are there where the scales are not completely tilted against us, right? That's important. And then our connectivity to the Northeast, we need a rethink in our complete projects. But the last example is what I would like to bring forth back, the Muizu factor, right? The Muizu situation, when it happened, did not look good to us, right? But we showed patience. And having showed patience, I think over the past 6-7 months, certain things have turned around. Things are not as bad as they started when Muizu came with this India Out campaign, right? Now, the latest thing from Muizu is that he's looking towards India for restructuring debt, and he's looking for evacuation and things like that. So we need to have strategic patience in this whole story to first get a grasp of the whole situation and then forge ahead. I think that was excellent. Right. With this, General HASNAIN, sir, all yours. Your take, please.
Sir, you're muted.
You're muted.
Sir, still muted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No.
Great to be back on this panel once again. I was muted because I thought that there would be a lot of noise around me taking place here because I'm getting calls and things like that. Let me start, and I don't want to take too long. Let me start by mentioning that just about half an hour ago, I was in conversation with someone from Bangladesh, a very, very respected editor, who was saying, why is India jumping into this so early, analyzing issues such as radicals and the influence of China, the possibility of Pakistan getting into it? He said, what you should be concerned about is about democracy and nothing else. So I had to turn around and tell him that, see, you have to understand yourself how important is Bangladesh's strategic space for India. This territory of 200 million people, this 4,000 kilometer border, to my mind, is one of the most important strategic spaces in the Indian subcontinent. Our complete eastern flank of India is actually, the security of that flank is contingent upon the stability of Bangladesh. Northeast our complete control on the northeast, the fact that we have a sliver of territory below Doklam, below the Chumbi Valley, called the Siliguri Corridor, makes us that much more vulnerable. Therefore, our relationship with you, our understanding of the dynamics of your security is so much important for us. That from the moment that we saw images of these kind of things happening here, our minds in India, anyone who's got his senses right, will start looking at what is in it for me? All this happening here, how can this be exploited by elements which are inimical to us? And that's exactly what we are concerned about. Now, my take here, and I'm not going to repeat much of what has already been said, this flank is so important for India. Myanmar, China, Bangladesh, the Siliguri corridor, the vulnerable northeast, this crucible, this combination all put together is India's strategic Achilles heel, actually. And we have to always keep looking towards it. The fact that Delhi, sitting in Delhi, we are so west-oriented. We can look at the Pakistan border, we can look at Punjab, we can look at Rajasthan, and draw our deductions and conclusions very quickly. But here, this area is not easy to analyze. The gathering of information, the ability to glean that correctly is also not very, very simple and easy. Pakistan, as far as Pakistan is concerned, this is a golden opportunity. The fact that they have been looking since 1971, the loss in 1971, I still say strategic victory for India. But at the end of the day, Pakistan still didn't lose out. The Jamaat-e-Islami's existence there, what are called the Razakars. In fact, Sheikh Hasina herself called some of these students Razakars, which is why they got extremely angry about it. The Razakars here have been there all this while, looking for a counter-revolution against the more leftist and socialist-oriented Awami League all these years. It was banned after the Jamaat-e-Islami was banned after the death of Sheikh Mujibur Rahman in 1975. It got revived. It got banned in 1972 and got revived in 1975 after the death of Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. It only got banned once again on the 1st of August, 4 or 5 days ago. That's about all. So, the threat and danger of right-wing radicalism, in this case Islamic radicalism, is something which is extremely live. Anyone who goes to Bangladesh and interacts with the common man, interacts with the intellectuals or anywhere, you will come away with this aspect in your mind that there is something amiss here. And you will realize that, yes, this is the fact. The same editor told me not more than 5% of the, whenever they have an election in Bangladesh, not more than 5% ever votes for these so-called Islamists. I said, that's exactly the situation in Pakistan. There also, they get 2%. 2%. But that 2% has created a 35-year problem for us in Kashmir. You are seeing this. And there's a golden rule. If you go on Google, you'll see that there's a golden rule called 3.5%. The moment you have 3.5% of a population which is involved in carrying out a certain activity with convergence of thought and convergence of ideology, it can make life miserable for you. Your entire security situation can go completely topsy-turvy with that 3.5%. So let's not argue about this, that Islamic radicalism in Bangladesh is 3.5% or 2%, whatever it be. The strains are enough to create a major turbulence inside Bangladesh. I can also tell you this. One of the best ways to see it is 2015, when the ISIS was battling it out all over. The ISIS was also looking at other areas around the world. They had gone into Philippines, they had gone to Indonesia, they had gone to Sri Lanka. They were attempting to come into southern India. One of the areas which they found most lucrative was actually Bangladesh. You remember the famous Gulshan colony case in which the famous bakery, when it was taken over by 6 young radicals who had been recruited by the ISIS there, locally, right? The killing of intellectuals, I think about 40 or 45 intellectuals were killed over a period of 2 months. All this was happening right there. And Sheikh Hasina was fully conscious of this. And that is why our friendship with Sheikh Hasina, our friendship with the Awami League, historical as it is because of our relationship with her father and Sheikh Mujib himself, obviously was something which was in our national interest. And it is that national interest that we are always seeking in Bangladesh to make sure that Bangladesh's polity, economics, social environment all remain stable at all times. Because any degree of instability in this very, very crucial element of society within Bangladesh can create havoc for India. Who can question the fact that 15 years with the Awami League, we have been able to stabilize the Northeast to such a great extent? John Cage will agree with me. The fact that before that we had militant leaders from the Northeast living in Bangladesh, the kind of support, the financial, terror finance and drugs and things like that, everything was available there. But we had this kind of stability because of it. Perhaps the only mistake somewhere we made was that we didn't look at alternatives, right? Alternatives is something that you have to always look when you're developing a relationship. You always find when visiting dignitaries come, they sometimes call on the leader of the opposition. In every good democracy, the leader of the opposition is called upon by a visiting dignitary and they meet each other. Somehow we did not do this. And a lot of people were pointing this out for a fairly long time. But in Bangladesh, the alternatives were very different. Bangladesh's polity is such. Who would you go to? Khaleda Zia, would she be very happy to work with India? Who would you go to? The Jatiya party of Ershad or anyone else like that? So these are challenges that we have faced all along. Now, the current situation. I fail to understand why, with all that has been happening in the last fortnight or more, almost 20 days in Bangladesh, why the institutions of Bangladesh have not been secured, protected. How is the parliament burning? How is the prime minister's house been vandalized? These are not things which happen in stable countries. So the Bangladesh army, a competent army, many of us have worked with this army in different countries, different UN missions abroad. It's a professional army, respected for the fact that it is available at all times for UN humanitarian missions, etc. But obviously it will have to get its act together very, very quickly. We have a young army chief, a very, very relatively inexperienced army chief who have to take control very quickly, because the next few days are going to be extremely crucial. We cannot allow full turbulence, complete loss of control in the country, because that will be absolutely chaotic for us. The last time it happened in 1971, we know what the results of this were. My last issue is on the Chinese. I mean, the fact that there is a lot of noise going around about US involvement and this and that. I somehow don't believe that kind of a thing. I somehow disbelieve this whole thing, because the United States has got enough on its hands with what is happening in Israel, with what is happening in Ukraine. I'm sure they are not in the business of trying to create one more 200 million nation, trying to create an element of turbulence here in a reasonably stable part of the world. I'm quite convinced about that. But I can't say that for the Chinese, can't say that for Pakistan. For Pakistan, the arc of radical Islam spreading into it, over India, coming into the eastern flank, is for them strategically the best kind of a situation which can possibly exist. On the asylum issue, which is my second last point, on the asylum issue, when my opinion was asked, I just simply said this. See, for me, it is our national interest. At this moment, it is very difficult to say what are our national interests. Our national interest, to my mind, identifying it, is to make sure that there's early restoration of stability in Bangladesh. And for that, we need to work as the largest nation in this area. We need to work with whoever is going to stabilize Bangladesh, the army, the bureaucrats, or civil society, or whoever is going to do it. We will have to work with them. And if we are seen to be defending, protecting Sheikh Hasina because of a sentimental and emotional relationship which has existed with us, that may not be taken too kindly by the very people who we wish to work with. So for us, I think the best option is to make sure that a full expression of our sentiment and emotion needs to exist, where Sheikh Hasina lives in India for as long as is possible. And thereafter, some other alternative arrangements should be made. But our interest demands that we start open up the doors immediately to talks, feelers, to whoever is going to be in power in Bangladesh, and make sure that the situation does not deteriorate any more than what it has already deteriorated. I think I'll stop here, and we will look for questions subsequently.
Thanks a lot, sir. Thanks a lot. I think you also made some very important points, and in fact, you spoke of Northeast being the strategic Achilles heel of India. You actually reiterated all what has been said so far. You also highlighted the fact that we are now in a situation where we don't have an alternative to the Awami League, and that is something which we have to now start developing from scratch, right? To add to all the instability and everything, I would also like to add there's an issue of instability due to the drug rings and the smuggling rings and the arms smuggling which goes on in this area. And all this we'll have to see. Our main interest is to stabilize Bangladesh as how stable it can become. And that seems to be a difficult proposition at this point of time because there's an absolute leadership vacuum existing there. Whether the army will continue or whether the army will put together an interim government or whether the army has the capability to even take over for some time and get some stability before it puts even an interim government in place, and then that interim government, how hostile or otherwise it is to the Indian government is a huge question mark. And it is this, I think, the first initial 100 meters of this whole story is going to be very difficult, right? And then, of course, you highlighted the fact you need just 5% to upset the whole apple cart. In fact, you've given the golden rule of 3.5%, which Google talks of. You don't need more than 3.5. And then the issue of an unstable Myanmar is always there, right? So we've heard all these issues. To be very honest, I can't take a question because the way the comments are zipping up, sir, are phenomenal because there are over 1,500 people watching this webinar at this point of time. So what I'll do is I'll give each of you 2 minutes each to give your final thoughts on this. I'll first invite Ambassador Gurjit Singh because I believe at 7 o'clock you have to leave. Sir, your views, and then I'm not going to ask any questions because I don't think we are in a position. I'm not in a position even to see which question to hold on to.
Thank you. The boil has burst and the pus is all over us. That is the reality. Now we have to wipe this pus. At the same time, we have to apply a salve on Bangladesh. But Bangladesh must also be ready to bandage itself. And that is, to me, today, is in serious doubt. No external power, however friendly, can help a country hell-bent on destroying itself, like they seem to be doing today. They wanted to become a developed country in a few years. They were on their way, and they have lost their way now. We must help them gently to come back to that path. Thank you.
Yeah, I think the most important point you made, Bangladesh is hell-bent to destroy itself. So let's see what it does next. Right. General KH, your views. 2 minutes.
Sir, I have nothing much to add except the fact that our government's policy of neighborhood first. I think we need to walk the talk a little more aggressively, particularly in this part of the world, because too many uncertainties are around, which are known to many people because of social media and what have you. So our interest, I totally agree, and also reinforce the need, as stated by all the speakers, that we must help Bangladesh regain some kind of stability, whatever means we may have to adopt. Otherwise, we are not in a strategically stable position in the future. Thank you.
Yeah, most important point which General K.H. Singh has made, we need to walk the talk for our neighborhood first policy to succeed. And I think that's very telling. General Gautam Murthy, sir, your view.
I think the ambassador had given a very clear example by saying that the pus is all over and we need to clean it up and we need to uh, apply some salve, apply antibiotics or whatever. But the point just remains is that the people of Bangladesh, as he said, I don't think the people of Bangladesh want radicalism. I go by what General HASNAIN says about the 3.5% votes for them, but that can have a huge influence, um, completely different from the numbers. And for that, we have seen even in Pakistan, it's an example of where the radical parties, whether they're supporting, PTI or the other group, the government, you find radicals in both parties who try and guide policies. We have to ensure that that radicalism does not spill over to India. I think that's very important that we see, and with our porous borders, we have to ensure that this does not happen. Bangladesh needs to heal itself, wait and watch, and at the same time, right now, be careful, be on your guard. That's all that I'll say.
Yeah, the watchword which you said, radicalism should not spill over to India, is why we are. We need to be on the watch and on the guard. So, your final comments, General Hasnain, sir.
See, from my side, I would say we haven't even considered the fact how India has responded so far. Right? I think for the first time we are seeing the political opposition in India after a long time in support of the government, which is a very heartening thing. Very, very heartening thing. This news of this morning, I was quite happy to see that thing happening where Rahul Gandhi has actually supported the entire thing. This will strengthen the hands of the government to a great extent. That's number one. The second thing, who do you talk to in a situation such as this? Who do you reach out to? This is a house divided, I can assure you, right? The only thing they are united in at the moment in Bangladesh is in the concept of ransacking. Everyone is violent, everyone is a lumpen, everyone is going around doing what they want. To regain the command and control and stabilization, so to say, I don't think a civil society government or a government of bureaucrats, etc., is going to be able to do that. No. The only one who can do it is the army. And the army is a house divided too. Because there's an element of radical influence within the army itself. So this is going to be a major challenge for us in terms of our choice. Who do you reach out to at this particular time? We should not be seen to be the ones who are propping up people there, because I think India has been on the with the accusatory finger pointed towards us far too often from Bangladesh to say we are in support of so and so and some so and so else. I think we should stand by, watch, but make sure that our choice, whatever way it be the right choice. Because if you go wrong in this choice, then the very near future is going to be something which is going to create some major challenges for us that we won't even know which side we are looking. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, sir. I think the most important point you made in this interval, last wrap up, is for the first time after a long time, and I agree with you, the opposition and our political party in power are on the same page for the first time, which is a very good thing. A national approach to Bangladesh is required, and if this continues, with the proviso, I think we can get a lot of things done, because that's half the job done. Internal, strength in India will automatically go across to Bangladesh. I only hope it continues. And the point which you made about the army, the Bangladesh army being also radicalized to some extent, there's a lot of value in it, because just as I was getting into the seminar, I did see a news where the Bangladesh army is also, a lot of postings have been issued and a certain amount of revamp is going on. I don't know how this will play out, because I don't know the actors, but a lot of postings of senior officers have been done. Maybe things are being put in place, and I do hope that the Bangladesh army, I think it seems to be the only institution which is working still coherently in Bangladesh, and that has to go through. Right. I thanks a lot, sir, for all of you, and also to the ambassador who had to leave for his other commitments. Your views on this whole subject are very valuable. After all, it's only just about 24 hours since the whole event has happened, and we're already here discussing and dissecting what's to happen and what's going to happen ahead. We need to have a lot of strategic patience about the whole thing. And I would like to tell all the viewers, I see a lot of angst in your comments, right? I see a lot of bitterness in your comments. That's understandable. But this is a time when all of us have to think through the whole thing with cool minds and some degree of rationality. And don't start behaving like what Bangladeshis are behaving at this point of time. That's the worst reaction we can do, right? We have to take a step back. We need to have strategic patience. We need to have empathy with each other. At the end of the day, whether you like it or not, those 197 million Bangladeshis are still going to be your neighbors. We have to take a call whether you want to live with them in peace or in strife. And I think living with them in peace is the better option. Right? That's the first point. The second point is I'm grateful that so many people from P Guru's channel have come, on live on this and are able to see it. I know all of you are many of you are watching from across the world, and a lot from USA. So please start looking at things from an Indian perspective and not from the US prism, because that prism at this point of time actually has not converged with the Indian prism. It will take some time. Okay, last but not the least, I'd request all of you, if you like this video, please, press that like button. Also, I would like you, those of you who are seeing it for the first time, to consider subscribing to the P Guru's channel and to Ganashot, so that our whole story becomes better. And I can assure you, not tomorrow, but day after, we will be back with different set of people or the same set of people. By then, the situation would have moved a little forward. Certain amount of clarity would have come, and we'll be back with you with more analysis. And our analysis is, I would like to reiterate, all four of us who are here and the good ambassador, we are completely apolitical. We don't have any religious sentiment, right? We are completely ethically and ethnically aligned to being completely Indian. And our analysis is informed analysis, and it is not, reactive analysis. This is what you get when you come to a channel like Ganashot, and when you have four generals speaking to you, right? I just thought I'll put all these across, and so that you go back after this and start thinking with a cool mind. With this, sirs, thanks a lot for all of you, and Jai Hind to all of you, and have a good evening. Jai Hind, sir.
Thank you.
Jai Hind,
Thank
Jai
you
Hind
very
to all
much.
of you.
Thank you for the viewers for your patience. Thank you. Jai Hind. Jai Hind.